Bill Maher is on a quest recently to be wrong on every single issue, taking the wrong stand everywhere a person can stand. And now he wants to talk a little bit about critical race theory. I know you've been waiting to hear what Bill Maher thinks about critical race theory. Well, here is his commentary.
There's something going on in the schools that never went on before. Now, I'm not in schools. I have no interaction with children whatsoever. But I do understand this issue because I read accounts from parents, from educators, from people, and this is all over the country. With American history, we learned about the Civil War. I mean, they mentioned racism. We understood slavery and Lincoln and blah, blah, blah. But they didn't really go into it any more than Gone with the Wind goes into it. It was there, but you didn't feel it viscerally. Now we're doing that, and I think that's a good thing. People should understand that. That's different than teaching that racism is the essence of America. That's what people get upset about. Or involving children who are probably not old enough or sophisticated enough to understand this very complicated issue. Yes, kids are taught and sometimes separated into groups, oppressor and oppressed. Again, does a kid even know what those words mean? Would they gravitate toward that if you hadn't told them?
There are a lot of reasons to have a problem with that video. A lot of really lazy thinking, a lot of needless surrendering to right-wing talking points. But just understand that, look, I'm not going to say I've never watched Bill Maher and liked it. Years ago, I did. But he has been ceding massive ground to the right wing, whether out of ignorance or because he actually agrees with them, for literally decades. All the stuff about political correctness. Right-wing narrative that some people needlessly gave to them. They're doing the same thing now on cancel culture as well as on critical race theory. And there was a lot of lazy thinking there. Now, look, he did say some stuff that was okay. He said, it's good that we're learning more about blah, blah, blah. Because I learned about Lincoln and blah, blah, blah. That's a bad sign. If, like, your example is slavery and Lincoln and blah, blah, blah. We should learn more. Now, he indicates that we should, but then he launches into, I hear these accounts of the teachers and the parents, and I don't think that it's right what they're doing. Okay, well, what are they doing? You got some anecdotal information, like the separating into oppressed and oppressors. What, did one elementary school teacher do that? Now look, if one elementary school teacher did that, is that good? No. We might even cover it. It's not a good thing to do, but it is not the status quo of education. It's not happening in classrooms around the country. It is not what the Republicans are saying. And if you understand nothing, Bill Maher, you should understand an opportunistic political narrative. And the fact that you're just giving it to them. And the stakes when you give it to them is what we understand about our history. He said the idea that racism is the essence of America. Now look, it's not the only essence of America, but it has been at the core of America from the very beginning, and it is not a bad thing to understand that. Understanding our history, being exposed to it, and trying to learn from it is not a bad thing. Ignorance isn't better. And why do I need to explain this to a person who considers himself a liberal, maybe even calls himself a progressive? And he seems to imply that you should learn this stuff at some point, but when? They're dragging kids into this. Well, yeah, we teach kids all sorts of things. And he says, well, yeah, but they might not be sophisticated enough to understand it. Well, when should they be? And if we wall off, like, the content of substance that's necessary to truly understand all these other issues, because race is embedded in our history, economy, our response to different issues, society, pop culture. How long? Should we wait until 5 years after you learn all those things that you learn about the racial component? Maybe instead of assuming that kids can't understand it, we talk to the actual educators and figure out the best way to teach them at different grade levels. I don't know, if kids can memorize 1,000 dinosaurs, I think they can understand that sometimes some people are bad to other people, and that has historically been really bad. And that's worth something to teach. But no. And look, honestly, just not wanting to do that, not thinking it's worth time, that is bad enough. And it's bad enough especially for a wealthy, older, white man to push, to say, I think it's not necessary that kids learn about racism beyond the Lincoln stuff. I'll occasionally say that they should, but I can't seem to come up with a situation in which they should. That would be bad enough. But to do it at a time where the right is trying to substitute substantive conversations about every issue with some vague about, oh, we should respect the parents more, unless the parents' wish is that their kids learn about race and learn an accurate history of the United States. That is even worse. It is so lazy. Like, he is supposed to be like sort of self-destructively critical of both sides, kind of. But all too often, those who made their brand attacking both sides now will not do it for the right. They just can't identify what's going on. They can see the flaws in people like the Schumers or the Pelosi's or whatever, but for some reason, it just becomes impossible to diagnose on the right. And I get it. He's friends with a lot of those people. He brings a lot of them on his show. But they're not necessarily good people. They're not necessarily operating in good faith. They don't necessarily give a shit about any of this. But it's very convenient coming off of your election losses, and when you totally biffed an entire goddamn pandemic, to suddenly pretend that you're the ones who's for the parents. And Bill Maher has been around long enough that he should be able to understand at least a little bit of this.